Listen, I really hope your listeners hear me say this, is to think that a stipend-only program could do what we've done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's ridiculous. And I'll be honest, I'd probably align myself with any critic to the belief of a story that this is all about paying young men to stop shooting. I would probably roll my eyes, too. This is DeVone Boggan, Neighborhood Safety Director for the city of Richmond, California, and you are listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
You know, one of the reasons we wanted to bring you in here was because you had a revolutionary program in Richmond, California, where you work, and it's now being adopted in Washington, D.C., and we want to talk about that program, but first I want to give all our listeners some background. Tell us, first of all, how do you find yourself in California?
Well, I grew up in Michigan, Lansing, Michigan, and came out to California because my dad was actually city manager in Berkeley, and I had an opportunity to attend the University of California at Berkeley. Wanted really to get to know my father a lot better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great opportunity educationally.
Oh, no question.
And a great life opportunity. Here you are, your dad's here.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. And had a great experience at the university. And I'll tell you, I always thought I'd go back to Michigan, but I got on an airplane December 23rd. It was during my sophomore year. And I got on the airplane in San Francisco in a sweatsuit. And
oh, boy.
And it had a great flight.
I bet.
And got off the airplane in Detroit, and my younger brother Daniel, who at the time was attending the Indiana University, picked me up and
laughed at you.
He did. He said some things too that I can't say on the air, but he laughed at me and said, "Oh yeah, dude, wait till you get outside." And I got outside. I went, "Oh, it was really cold." And quite frankly, you know, I hadn't even packed accordingly. And that was when I knew, you know what? I'm a
You're
California
man.
I'm a California man.
That's
yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
No kidding.
So, with regard to your transition to becoming a Californian, you after that trip, it was wiped clean from your mind that you'd ever live in Michigan.
Oh yeah, I used to joke and say it paid me a lot of money to come back to Michigan and be employed there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, now, so you're back in Cal. You come back. That was your sophomore year. You knew you were going to stick around.
Yeah.
There's a lot to. You stayed out here, remained in school.
Yeah.
What did you study at Cal?
I studied political science.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your background really did walk you right into this position.
Well, it did, you know, and I'll tell you more of what sort of drove me down this street, and that was while I was at Cal, I got into mentoring young people through a program at Stiles Hall.
Okay.
And a guy by the name of David Stark, who's still at Stiles Hall, believe it or not, and this is 30 years ago, right? Yeah. Got me into mentoring some young people from South Berkeley. And I fell in love with it, and I failed tremendously. I mean, you know, many mentors who volunteer to help young people typically walk away within 3 months of their year commitment. And I was one of those guys.
Wow.
'Cause this kid challenged the heck out of me.
Uh-huh.
And I walked away for the very reason he demonstrated why he needed a mentor, and it scared the heck out of me.
Yeah.
And David.
Now, how did they find candidates that came to the program to be mentored?
Well, they were working with schools, elementary schools in South Berkeley.
Okay.
And there were kids who were having challenges, and at that time, mentoring was a huge thing to do.
Right.
As it is today.
Yeah.
And they figured, you know, if we get these kids connected to college students, this may help them educationally, academically, and help them in the classroom in terms of their behavior, study habits, etc. And this was a tough area of town at the time and tough school for a young third, fourth grader to be involved in. And I got connected to a young man who was being raised by his mom. His father wasn't around. Mom was a good woman, overwhelmed, had a couple of kids, and struggling to make ends meet. Just didn't have a great deal of time to give a son all the time that he might need. He definitely needed a young man in his life, and he just challenged me. I mean, he was all over the place. An example of that is he avoided me for like 3 months. I mean, we'd make appointments. And I would set it up over the phone with him. His mom would be cool with it. I'd show up at the house and
he's just not show.
He's not there. And his mom would say, well, he's not here. But I'd hear him in the back room. Mm. So, she was working it with him.
She was enabling.
She was enabling him,
Probably
right?
just didn't know what else to do.
She didn't. I mean, she did not. And,
sound like she could have used a mentor at some point in her life as well.
No question. And, she was trying to protect her son. And, sure. And I can appreciate that. And I tell you, eventually, we did get together, and he threw a tantrum that just sort of shocked the heck out of me. And it was then when I said, you know what? I got better things to do with my time.
Right.
And I walked away. And I had a mentor who I am certain I would have never gotten into Cal without. I met a guy by the name of Andre Williams, who was a sprinter at Michigan State University.
Okay.
I met him at the Boys and Girls Club in Lansing, Michigan on a fluke. And I must have been 13, 14 years old.
I was going to say that was a great place to find a mentor. We had in our generation, I don't know what's around there now, but in our generation, you had the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
You had Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Yeah.
And so this program that you walked away from, did you walk away for good, or did you eventually find
I got
your way
back. And so Andre used to call me while I was in school here, and he asked me, so what's going on? I said, I tried mentoring. He's like, what?
His mentorship never really left you. He continued to stay in touch.
And it wasn't ever mentoring.
Okay.
Because when I said I tried mentoring,
checking in on you.
I said I tried mentoring. He said, "What's that?"
What's that?
Right. I said, "What you did for me." And he said, "What do you mean? I just, helped out. I encouraged you. I supported you, and told you what you needed to hear, etc." I said, "Yeah. Well, I tried that with this kid." Well, what kid? Young man, third, fourth grader. He said, well, how'd it go? I said, well, I mean, this dude did things I would have never done to you. And I told him that he threw a tantrum, and he started laughing at me on the phone. He said, you did a whole lot worse than that. And he started reminding me of some of the things I did as a knuckleheaded kid who wanted to tell him to go to heck a few times, right? And did. And he reminded me.
I'm sure the place you told him to go to.
Oh, right.
However.
Right. So, and in that moment, I realized, wow, what a jerk I am.
And this kid that you're mentoring, he probably had no idea.
No idea.
That he was doing these things.
Well, no, he did. And here's the thing. So when I show up, I did. It took me a month, but I got back in the saddle. And I remember the first thing his mom said to me, and I lied. She said, where have you been? I said, I got caught up in studies. I had to go underground, finals, studies, whatever. And she said, okay. I said, is John around? He said, yeah. He'd love to see you. And I remember walking into his room, and he looked at me like, he looked at me with this look that said, oh, darn, you're back?
Yeah.
I thought I had gotten rid of you. I walk into his room after being absent because I had quit for about a month.
Let me ask you before you go further. Mm-hmm. I think this story is leading to that you had a relationship with him and that you did continue. And
we did.
Made it. Are you still in touch with him?
No.
That was many years ago.
Many years ago.
Okay.
Absolutely. No. And it was a year commitment, and we stayed in touch for a while. But, what I realized in walking into his room after having given up over that month period is that he had expected that I would walk away.
Wow.
In fact, I think a lot of our young people throw temper tantrums when they have mentors come into their life to address the issues that they may be confronting, because they're concerned like their father or their mother or someone who isn't supposed to give up on them does.
Yes.
they find themselves believing that that's the way life is going to be. So let me throw everything in the kitchen sink at this guy so that I don't even have to make any emotional investment.
Right.
And he'll be gone and I'll go on with my
He'll
life.
Prove me right.
Boom. And so I show up and he's like, and I said, hey, and I had to be really honest with him, about why I had walked away. And, sort of,
Did you have to be immediately honest with him?
I did. I
said
I did. Okay. And that might have been right. It might not have been right, but I told him, I said, hey, brother, I was wrong. I walked away. I quit. Here's why. But I promise you, I won't do that again. I may give you a timeout. I may give me a timeout, but I'm coming back. Mm-hmm. Right. And, he challenged me the rest of the way. But he knew that I was coming back, and I came back, each time he challenged me. And like I said, I mean, we went beyond the year commitment. But it taught me a lot about the importance of being resilient, what a commitment means. See, when I signed up for mentoring, I didn't sign up and say, I'm going to stay committed for a year as long as he's good.
Right.
I said, I'm going to sign up. I'm going to stay committed to this young man, and I'm going to mentor him. And most of us don't acknowledge that that's what this is all about. If I had just gone and showed up for a year and he had avoided me, I would have done what I said I was going to do.
Right.
And I just think it's important because I think a lot of our young people, particularly young people I'm engaging today, they are a product of abandonment plus war zone or warlike environments that they're growing up in.
And that is a tough salad to live in the middle of.
It's a tough salad, and what they need is individuals who are willing to be pliable, resilient, patient, and willing to tell them what they need to hear versus what they want to hear. But be willing to be with them and stand with them when they screw up big time.
Right. Pliable, patient, resilient.
Yep.
I couldn't agree more.
And I think it's just as simple for them too. Like I know whenever I try to mentor, have fun, make mistakes, learn from them.
Very good.
Right?
Absolutely.
And just repeat that cycle.
That's right. And the big one there, have fun.
Have fun.
Have fun.
It's going to be all right.
Have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in that equation, it's right to, it sounds like you've had success with this, but I've mentored a number of kids myself. And in that process, you have to let them know, hey, you're going to try this out. And it's not going to work out every time.
That's right.
You're going to bump your head. You're going to get frustrated.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hand you the reins and you're going to take us off the rails a couple times. And that's okay too.
It's okay.
That's
okay. And then you have to be willing to accept those bumps as the mentor.
Right.
I mean, I get excited because mentoring can be tough, but it's the simplest thing in the world to do because you don't have to get so caught up in the results.
Right.
You have to get excited about simply planting seeds, watering those seeds and pulling the weeds that may grow up around those plants every once in a while. But just get caught up in saying, you know what, I'm just going to continue to plant in spite of what the weather comes at me. I'm going to continue to plant positive and healthy seeds. And one day, maybe more than likely when I'm not around, that's when they are going to
bear fruit. Right. If our listeners out there have an opportunity at mentorship that they have not committed to, I'm going to urge you out there, please do it. And don't think for a moment that you have, well, I don't quite know how to teach and I don't quite know how to, because you know what? It's not that.
It's not.
Sometimes it's just presence. And like you said, just a little bit of patience in a young person's life and somebody to just navigate this thing with them that they're unsure about.
Absolutely.
In the war zone environment that you bring up, there is so much to standing firm.
Yes.
And just having a place where somebody can let their guard down a little bit and say, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I just don't know what I'm doing. And being the person who says, that's okay. That's okay.
That's right.
Yeah. I say a lot that it's okay to not be, this is hard.
Right.
And it's okay that you're not sure. Those things, that's normal to be a little scared and
confused.
Real talk.
You don't, it's funny how we try to act like we we have all the answers when we grow up.
Right. Right.
And young people see that in some adults, and it makes them believe that that's what being an adult means.
Having the answers.
Having the answers. I mean, how many times have you had an adult in front of you and you knew they made the answer? They blue booked the answer.
Right.
Rather than say, you know what, I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's together figure it out.
Right.
Right. I think more young people need that kind of access.
Right.
To saying, you know what, it's okay not to know. And you're never going to have all of the answers. And quite frankly, your answers may change from time to time.
And finding out the answers is a process.
Oh, man. That's a great journey.
Yeah.
It's a great investigative journey.
So let's get to now.
I'm dying. I want to. Let's figure out. You have worked on solving an incredible problem. And I'm not going to say that it's solved, but you've addressed something that it plagues every urban area.
Yep.
Well, I'm just going to shut up and let you do the talking, because tell us what you built.
Okay. Well, early 2006, City of Richmond, California began to recognize that their history of gun violence was trending upward. So it went from a city that typically had 30, 35 homicides a year over a 20-year period to 45, nearly 50 homicides a year, firearm-related homicides.
And if you're out there and not familiar with Richmond, California, let me tell you something. Richmond, California is not an enormous town.
100,000 people soaking wet.
100,000 people soaking wet. To have that number of homicides is frightening.
Yeah. In fact,
Richmond, for a lot of people, is home. And they deserve for it to be home, and they deserve for it not to be frightening.
That's real talk.
So
deserve for it to be home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Deserve for it not to be frightening.
Yeah.
Public safety or personal safety is a human right. I mean, they should be able to count on that.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
There are high schools in Richmond, California, that do not have windows.
Yeah.
This is if anybody's familiar with the Coach Carter story, didn't that take place?
It sure did.
At
Richmond High School.
Richmond High School,
Yes.
yeah. So the challenge that you're dealing with when you say that their history of gun violence, their incidents of gun violence was trending upward, we're not talking about a place that had a comfortable cushion and trending upward was going from 2 to 6 or going from 3 to 4.
Right. That's right.
It was substantial in the community, and it was substantial, and it affected all of the communities that surround it.
Correct. And understand that cities that size typically don't have more than 4 homicides by firearm a year. Right. So this is a city that's got 45, 47.
Yeah.
People are dying.
Right.
I mean, young men under 30, mostly African American, are dying. Blood, carnage, all over the place.
It's a war zone.
It's a war zone. And the city, I think, came to a place where it realized that law enforcement by itself was not maximizing the opportunity that they wanted to see in terms of their public safety goals. So they reached out by way of seeking external help from consultants who could make recommendations for what kinds of things could they do to reduce their youth-related gun violence problem. And I happened to be asked by the person who was chosen. The organization that was chosen was an organization that I used to provide leadership for. It's called the Mentoring Center in Oakland. And the executive director at the time, David Muhammad, reached out to me and said, hey, we need some public policy support work from you. Would you be willing to help us out? And I tell you, I told him no 3 times.
Now, where were you at the time?
Yeah,
you were
I was
not working at the City of Richmond?
No. I was working, I was a consultant, and I was also working in the city of Oakland for an organization called Safe Passages. Safe Passages is a partnership between the city of Oakland, Alameda County, and the Oakland Unified School District. I was serving as policy director for its urban health initiative. And my portfolio was managing a group of policy associates who were working on issues like after-school programming, violence in middle schools, 0 to 5, and chronic violent offenders, which was my portfolio.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were doing a lot of great work. He said, look, need policy related work to connect with this effort that we're going to be doing in Richmond. Finally, he made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And I said, yes, a month after I sign on, he takes off to become deputy chief of probation in the District of Columbia.
Come on.
Yeah. So he just leaves me. And I give David a hard time every time I see him. Because it was a tough environment to be in. Most of an organized community there did not like the fact that this organization was chosen to work on this contract to come up with these recommendations. And then, David is also a resident of Richmond and he leaves. And now there's this Oakland guy who is now the face of this thing. What does an Oakland guy know about Richmond was the big question.
Sure.
And so I had to negotiate all of that, upon his departure and throughout the next 9 to 12 months.
From where did you get this resistance? Are you talking about community resistance? Or are you talking about administrative resistance?
I'm talking about community resistance. There's a lot of people that make money off of death.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are a lot of poverty.
I also have to say that not only were you an Oakland guy coming in, to Richmond, and what do you know about Richmond, but Richmond also has, it's a very urban attitude. Mm-hmm. It's a very, here you come into town, not only from Oakland, but with a strong education, and you are how do I put it?
Oh, let me just tell you, they said it. You don't have to put it. I was told he reads the King's English too well.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I was like, wow. Really, I was asked, and I won't mention the name, but I was asked to dumb down my language or my use of language.
I imagine you were.
Many times, not just to the community, but to our own city council.
Also, if you're a listener right now, go ahead and if you're listening on iTunes and you can't see the thumbnail photo of DeVone, go ahead and go to our website and check it out, because not only do you read the King's English a little too well, but for Richmond, California and community resistance, you are a little too light-skinned and green-eyed.
I did hear that, too.
Yeah.
I did.
If you like the show,
and you know you do, support the show.
There are 3 ways you can support us.
Number 1, go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And leave a 5-star rating and review.
It helps with the show metrics and helps us get better placement. Number 2,
visit our website,
www.breakitdownshow.com.
We've got an Amazon and an eBay link.
Same Amazon, same eBay, you know and love, but they give us a little kickback when you get to their site from ours. And number 3, leave comments about the shows that you like. We want to know what you think, how you feel.
Tell us how to make the show better. We greatly appreciate it.
Now back to the show.
Early on, it was a battle.
I'm sure.
Even after I became neighborhood safety director, I was told by community members that we'll have your ass out of here in 3 months. And so I really found myself planning my life in 6-month intervals.
They were that kid looking at you like, I can't believe you came back.
Boom.
I'm going to throw this kitchen sink at you because we're going to prove ourselves right and you're going to go away too.
We've tried everything. We've spent money on everything. And here you come in here saying you got something you think can work. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. We've seen it all. We've heard it all. And you're not even from here.
Right.
So you're right. It was the jaded, hurt young person. And in fact, it's funny that you
high yellow
you
ass.
say, right. Real talk.
Yeah.
Real talk. I was accused of driving they say I had a Maserati or something. I was just like, wow, I drive an old red Honda Prelude. Let me tell you, it was interesting, but it certainly prepared me, and it certainly kept me on my toes.
It's a place. I don't want to derail the conversation because we want to get right back to where we are right now. But it's worth acknowledging that when a place has urban plight, when a place is a war zone, it's so tough to get that kind of resistance and not look at it and go, look, this is what's plaguing you.
Yeah.
Why are you resisting? I mean, you come in with your fancy education and you get pushback.
Yeah.
You come in to help.
Yeah.
But that's normal, though. You know, when you work in conflict zones,
Sure.
instability is the norm. These guys are better at instability than you are.
Right.
What they're not good at is stability.
Right.
So, yeah, there's 45 people being murdered in the streets, but there's also 45 families
Right.
that are just torn apart.
Torn apart.
And the police have tried everything they can, but listen, I love the police, but they're not huggers.
Yeah.
So when they come in, they're going to cause even more damage.
Yeah.
And so you got a lot of people that are hurting
Yeah.
and literally don't know how to do what you're talking about doing.
Absolutely. And so, you know, the ideal of creating an office that didn't exist anywhere in the country.
Right.
A new government agency. Wow. We're going to actually create and bring into being a new government agency that is non-law enforcement with one single goal, and that's to reduce firearm assault and associated injury and death. How are you going to do that? And so I remember, you know, just the human our HR department, human resources department, when we said we want to create a job classification called neighborhood change agent. It was the second job classification put up outside of the neighborhood safety classification in this department. And one of the requirements for this new city employee is that they have a criminal background.
Right.
Right. And we really want folks that have a criminal background where it's a firearm offense in the background.
Okay.
So it wasn't just
This
any
is a
criminal.
great qualification.
There's a lot of those guys running around that can run
Right.
departments.
Right. So they were like, "What? Yeah, that's got to be a part of the MQs, right?
Oh, man.
Right? So that was, so it was push and push and push. And we got it through. The neighborhood change agent classification exists today. The other challenge was, these are going to be people that will be a revolving door.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, and the city manager would tell you today, that these have been some of the most stable positions in terms of the personnel who've occupied these positions in city government in our city. Most of the guys that I hired in February of 2008 are with me today. And that translates into trust on the street.
That's right.
And it's also has a lot to do with any success we've had. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But before I get into the change agent, the first 3 people that I hire into this organization are active firearm offenders. Why?
Yeah.
And how? So I find a classification inside city government that exists called office aid. And I'm thinking, this agency is about reducing gun violence. It's about the young people involved in gun violence. They have to inform what happens here. How do I get that to happen early?
Yeah.
So a community member brings me 3 young men, all from the same hood, but they're all, she said, guys who are involved in gun violence. And I figured having them around, they wouldn't be able to do the office aid work, the duties. But what they would do is be able to provide me with an experience firsthand that would inform everything.
And an
Many
insight
things.
that somebody who could perform that task was not
Not going to
likely
be able
to
to
give
do,
you.
right? And they did. These guys were shot several times under our employ. They did some outrageous things. For example, one of the guys had his car towed. He goes down to the police station. They won't give it to him, and he threatens the person behind the counter at the police station, threatens their life. You're in the police station threatening somebody's life? Wow.
Yeah. That's
wow.
bold.
That's really bold.
That's
bold. That tells you about a mentality.
That's right.
Tells you about a mentality. And so I remember getting that call, and I'm like, wow, he did what? Wow, I got the right guys. I really have the right guys working here. And they were suspected of doing some damage with a firearm during their tenure with me. 2 of them certainly have survived and gone on. One of them is now at Florida A&M studying pre-law.
Wow.
One of them is here working on his EMT certification, and one of them is in jail probably for the rest of his life for murder.
Wow.
But they definitely all informed what we did. We bring on the neighborhood change agents in February of 2008. by April of 2008, we have deployed these neighborhood change agents. And what I mean by that, these are street outreach workers. These are gun violence interrupters.
Right.
And so we essentially, let me tell you a little bit about where most of our crime was happening, or gun crime. 47 homicides in 2007, more than 282 firearm assaults with an injury in 2007.
Wow.
The Central Policing District encompasses the Iron Triangle and North Richmond, which is unincorporated county area. Encompassed 28 of those 47 homicides in 2007.
Wow.
So where do you think we naturally would put all of our offensive resources?
Right
we had
there.
4 neighborhood change agents. We're going to focus right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Iron Triangle,
North Richmond. And that's the feud between North and Central. Big feud going on there historically. And so we worked our behinds off mining, getting to know the community, understanding the drivers of gun violence, understanding the nature of gun violence, connecting with folks. And in 1 year, or even less than 1 year, we went from 47 homicides to 28 citywide in 2008.
By just simply engaging more.
In just being present and engaging more. And in that Central Policing District where we had 28 the year before, we had 3 in 2008.
Hold on. One more time. 47
citywide
to 28
to 28 citywide
to 3
in that area.
In the area.
Right. To 3 in the area that had 28 the year before.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we learned something, guys.
You were not a function of the police department.
No. Mm-mm. We were accused of it several times.
Sure.
21 Jump Street.
I
I've
bet.
heard it.
Oh, yeah.
Secret FBI agents.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we've had it all. And sometimes deliberately by people who just hate.
Yep.
Sure. Trying to sabotage the work.
Yeah.
So we've had to deal with that. But once these guys, our neighborhood change agents, have been with us so long, folks know. They know they ain't the cops. And the things we do with these guys aren't things that police do with guys like this. But we learned something. We learned that, wow, we had 28 homicides. Yeah, only 3 in the area where we were. But we had 25 in a new area, South Richmond. So we learned that hot spots are hot because of hot people.
Right.
And hot people are smart and mobile.
And move, right?
And
so
move.
if you concentrate your efforts in a particular neighborhood, because it's the hot spot,
right,
the hot people are going to say, that's not our neighborhood anymore.
It ain't our neighborhood no more. New alliances get made,
right,
everything. But something else happened, and that was the city celebrated. It was akin to George Bush.
We won, right? Victory.
Game over.
Yeah. Victory. And in 2009, back to 45 homicides.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And what I would say is it was where the city said, look, you've got these resources. Now we need to, rather than focus is a big word in our work. Pinpoint focus on the issue, the presenting issue. Rather than focus, we want you to have an agent here, have one there, have one here. And that sent us right back. We were chasing stuff in 2009. Right. But then something interesting happened at the beginning of 2010. I find myself in a room with a variety of law enforcement agencies, federal, state, county, local, who are talking about gun crimes in 2009 and what they believe was going on. And I continue to hear these personalities say 17 people responsible for 70% of the 2009 firearm activity.
You got to say that again, 'cause that's incredible.
17 people they believed were responsible for 70% of the firearm activity in 2009.
Those were the hot people.
Boom. Yeah. And hot people, right? Mm-hmm. And it just it was an aha moment for me, and so it kind of brought my office aides experience, my work with my change agents experience, the experience of 2008, the experience of 2009. Now I'm in this room in early 2010 with law enforcement, and they're seeing 17 people, 70%, and I'm thinking, wow, That's all we're going to focus on. So what I said to the folks in the room, can I have your 17 without you conferring with anybody else in this room? I wanted unduplicated counts. I'm sure that 17 here was a different, maybe 17 over here.
Right.
I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be 28 unduplicated names responsible for 70%. So I take that information back to my neighborhood change agents and I say,
there's your 28 guys.
that's all we're doing in 2010.
Get 'em.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're going to hunt
go engage
them
these
down
people.
like they hunt their enemies down or like the police hunt them down, but we're
Right.
going to hunt them down
A little
with a
different.
very different purpose, right?
Right.
And before we could get up and running to go get these guys, 3 of them were killed
Right.
quickly. So we had 25 living people that we really began to focus on. And here was the assignment, guys. I said to my team, I said, look, I don't have a plan yet. Now, this is February, March of 2010. But here's what I know I want to do. I want you to convince these 25 individuals to sit down with me at City Hall. And by the time they get here, I will have a plan to put in front of them. My staff balked. They said, well, DeVone, they're not going to come to City Hall. That's where the old police department used to be. And I said, well, they are going to come to City Hall. Well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you're worth your salt in your job is to get people to trust you. How can we help these guys if they don't trust you?
That's right.
They're going to come to City Hall on your word.
Right.
You're
going to bring them.
You're going to bring them. In the next 3 months, you're going to convince them that they're going home, they're going to be safe, and that this is not a law enforcement sting operation. Well, why don't we just meet them in their community centers where they live? Because we had to bring them in 3 separate groups. When you narrow it down like that, you got the guys trying to shoot each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they said to me, and I said to them after they asked me that question, I said, would you take your own child into that community center?
Yeah.
I wouldn't let my kids go into that community center.
Yeah.
I want these young men to understand that City Hall is theirs and they're VIPs. We're going to meet them in the best room in the house. They're coming here to help us solve something that we've demonstrated that we cannot solve without them.
So your strategy was to not only bring them to City Hall, but you're going to bring them into the grand room and you're going to sit down in mahogany chairs.
Right.
And you're going to say, we're here not to, in a threatening way. We're here to acknowledge that in your own way, you have a place in this community that is, I don't want to use the word important, but I do.
Oh.
I mean, you were acknowledging their importance because on the street,
Their value.
this guy is running things. And so you have to engage in this manner. You have to engage them the same way.
Oh, definitely. John, and I let them know they were influencing public policy and they weren't even thinking about it.
Right.
Wow.
So I get them in the room. So let me back up. So my staff got it. They said, okay. I said, we're going to cater.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're going to treat them like we treat developers who come to City Hall.
Right.
Right. These guys are, if they're as important, if not more important. Quite frankly, developers don't want to come here if there's violence.
That's right.
Right? And so they're very important to the economy, to the public safety of this community, to the future of this community. So,
Can I just jump in and say
Yeah.
one thing? This is exactly the type of thing that I found in Afghanistan and Iraq, right? We'd bring in these leaders. These guys are elected. These are like House of Representative people. And I would go to the commander and say, these guys got to walk in the door like John Kerry would, like John McCain would. You can't frisk them. You have to say, hey, sir, thank you. No, like, we got it. That's fine. But I had to go and set that up.
Pete, I love you for saying
You
it,
know?
man. Yeah.
And then the other thing that we had that was super powerful, we'd always go to people's houses, show up unannounced, be like, hey, we're here for lunch, and we wouldn't say we were there for lunch, but that's what would happen.
Yeah.
So I started inviting them to our camp, and I'd say, hey, we have ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you have ice cream? Holy shit. Can I take some ice cream from? Like, yes. Do you want here, raid this thing? I don't care, and we got in a little bit of trouble. I can handle that kind of heat though. Cause I go to the commander and be like, he took $100 worth of bullshit food. Who cares? But that guy's in our house now and we get to be hospitable
That's
to
real
him.
talk, man. That's
So
real
I
talk.
wanted to make sure I said that because it's real.
And like you said, real. These guys, so 3 months goes by. My team is out there working. They're working the streets. They're mining. They're finding these guys. They're chasing them down every day. And lo and behold, the day comes in June. I don't remember the exact date, but the day shows up. 3 separate cohorts or groups. 3 separate groups have to show up in hour-and-a-half intervals with an hour in between to get the others off campus at City Hall. And I didn't tell City Hall what I was doing.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
And, I joked with the city manager today because, he walked by his conference room and he's like, DeVone has reserved my conference room all day. What's going on in there? And I didn't tell him because I knew he would have found a way to convince me maybe this isn't a good idea.
Right.
And let me tell you what happened. They came as they were. 3 floors in City Hall. You could have walked up the stairs or came up to the 3rd floor to the city manager's conference room by elevator, and you would have gotten a contact high. I mean, the smell of marijuana was everywhere.
Wow.
These guys showed up
Yeah.
in their glory, right?
Yeah.
Their hats, their pants, their gold teeth, and they was knocked up when they showed up to City Hall.
Right.
And we didn't turn them away because they smelled like that.
It was Tuesday.
Right? And so, there were folks concerned about what is all this going on and why are these young men walking through City Hall and what's going on? But they were there. And when they walk into the room, they're in a very elegant room, and it's set up like the United Nations. Their name placards, Mr. And their last names
Yes.
around the table.
That is undoubtedly something
Nice
that
food.
had not ever happened.
Nothing. And you could tell they walking in looking at nice, neat packets of information that we would read to them and make an offer to them around this fellowship that we had come up with. And I was my best dressed that day.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I wanted to be sharp. I knew I wanted these cats to go, who is this dude?
Or you're selling.
So for those of you
You
who
know?
have looked at our Facebook page and seen DeVone's picture, he's wearing a sweater. But that day, we're talking about a guy who went to law school.
Mm-hmm.
So that day,
Suited,
you were
booted.
butted up.
I was butted up. And in fact, one of the young men in one of those rooms, one of those groups said to me, I want to do you.
Right.
I mean, that's just what he said to me. And so
I've never seen pinstripes like that before.
Hey, and let me tell you, I came at them. You got to know how to be trilingual.
Right.
So I came at them a couple of different ways. I was paying attention to their attention spans,
right,
and where they were. But I started off simply by thanking them for coming and introduced myself as the neighborhood safety director. Let them know where I sat inside city government. Let them know what the Office of Neighborhood Safety was designed to do. And then I apologized for taking so long to get to them. And I apologize on behalf of city government in that we're dealing with a seemingly intractable, unsolvable problem where you have a great deal of influence, and we have yet to come to you and ask you to help us solve it.
I love it.
Hold on.
I love it.
Yeah. And you could say all those things and be 100% sincere.
Oh, and I was, man. I was passionate as well.
Yeah.
And I had some looks at me like, what's this MF talking about?
Right, right.
They didn't throw, they threw themselves at me. And so, I explained that I said, you guys are influencing public policy without even thinking about it. And, Cass was like, what the hell are you talking about? I said, well, let's think about something. How many of you would consider yourselves a punk? And let me tell you, they looked at me like,
who you calling a punk?
Yeah.
who you? It was as if I called them one.
Right.
And they looked at me and I said, well, you are. You're being punked every day. And I just got real raw with them.
Yeah.
And I said, we have $345,000 beat cops in the city of Richmond. Our police overtime budget is $600,000 a month in the city of Richmond. You know what that's justified by? You. How's that working for you? What you getting from that?
Right. So there's a $600,000 monthly budget
just for overtime
because of your narrow ass.
For your narrow ass and what you doing out in your community. And what you getting for it?
Zero.
Nothing.
Yeah. Right.
Nothing.
You get chased around.
Nothing.
You get to hop some fences sometimes.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And your brothers and your homies are dying. And that's just not cool. And I showed them art. And what I mean by that is I had pictures of police camera footage of them doing things. Mm-hmm. And they're walking the streets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had narrative of what they were suspected of doing.
Yeah.
And they're walking the streets. I said, they're just waiting to put you in federal prison. They're waiting to develop the evidence to put you away where you're going to serve 80% of the time. Way far away from here.
From here.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you're being punked. But you can change that. I mean, most of you all don't want to live the life you're living. I know that. Now, you might not tell me that in this room.
And you might not say that amongst
yourselves. But I know. I know most of you don't like the life. I know you can't like getting up every day, having to look over your shoulder everywhere you go.
Right.
Right. And so together, I know we can do something different. And I've got an offer I would like to put in front of you. You can tell me to go to hell. You can get up and leave anytime you want. Right. Or you can even ask for a ride up out of here. Right. This is not a mandated offer. You can tell me no, and I got it. I'm going to respect you no matter what. Right. And so what I put in front of them was the making of our fellowship. I said, look, I want to engage you very intensely over the next 18 months. I want to bring you into our family, and we want to become a part of your family. And this is how I mean, what I mean by that. Every day, I want to make sure that you have access to someone in this room on my staff, multiple people in this room, multiple times a day. We're not saying come to us. We're going to come to you. We're going to find you. We know where you are. We know where you be. We're going to come out and see you every day. And we're going to meet you where you are, and we're going to ask you, how you doing? Do you need anything? Does your family need anything? Everything cool? What can we connect you to in terms of helps that you might need access to?
Right.
Every day. Sometimes it's just going to be to listen to you rant and rave.
Often.
Right?
I imagine.
Right. Often. It might simply to play some dominoes with you. Whatever, we coming out to hang out with you and be with you. Right? That's how valuable you are. And it was important for us to know where these guys were.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. So
These were the 25 people who were responsible
and
for.
I should tell you that, and you know what, I miss telling you, 21 of the 25 showed up.
Right.
Okay.
21 of the 25 invitees showed up. Right.
That
16
means that truly,
to 26 years old.
Right.
In the company of their peers, maybe they were quiet, but truly, they didn't want to be where they were.
Right. And let me tell you, we've had two cohorts since the first one. We're in our fourth cohort now. And we usually make an offer to a number of young men, and 15 to 20% resist the offer.
Sure.
We keep after them. Some we turn, some we don't.
Sure.
But most of these guys, 80% of these guys, given a real, responsive, robust, legitimate, credible opportunity, they're grabbing it. They are going to grab it. And I want to go back to that